Welcome to the 2021 IP Legends Awards. On behalf of the Georgia IP Alliance, thank you for joining us today. Both to our honorees and special guests here in the room with us today, and to those of you watching this live broadcast remotely. We are proud to continue our tradition of recognizing outstanding IP professionals in the Georgia IP community. It's a tradition that began in 2007, and every 3 years since 2009, we've come together to recognize IP legends for their significant impact on IP and the community through their accomplishments and contributions, and for serving as a role model for others, while upholding the highest standards of ethics and professionalism. Our honorees today have earned this distinction over their careers, much of that time molding us and driving us to new standards of excellence. By demonstrating themselves the kind of skill, courage, and care that has advanced their professions and society by providing opportunity for all people. No matter the challenges faced by a female partner at a time when there were very few, or those of a Black attorney in the same era, or a maestro who's effecting a new culture and direction in long-standing establishments. In the true sense of the words, our honorees have paved the way for others. We deeply admire and respect them for their accomplishments, but even more for what they've taught us, for inspiring us. Please join me in congratulating Jim Johnson, Robert Spano, and Virginia Taylor. Thank you for everything that you have done and you continue to do. We're proud to call you IP legends and to share this great contribution and achievement with you here today. So let's do that. Let's turn to our program. I want to introduce our first speaker. We know him as the president and CEO of AT&T Intellectual Property, the chair of the Georgia IP Alliance, the US IP Alliance, and more. But above all that, we know that Scott Frank is a great person. He truly cares about people, their well-being, and this comes across in all that he does. I have the good fortune of seeing this at AT&T, where he continues to innovate and create tremendous value for the corporation. And I see this at GIPA, which is at the model beginning for many movements at the state level, in the country, and across the world. We're fortunate to have his leadership. I want to welcome Scott Frank.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Those great words. Really appreciate you. First off, I want to give Wade and Sue Wellborn, Pete Wellborn, just a really big thank you for putting this event together. Can we give them a round of applause? You know, Wade and Susan spent a ton of time through this effort. Last year they did the IP Community Service Awards, and this year it's the IP Legends. And, you know, it's something that, what can I say? It's almost like planning a wedding. There's so many details, but they're a great team. And then Pete's done a great job with this office space, and this is just a really perfect venue for such an important event. I also want to share with you something. Now, last year I tried to pick this thing up and it was a little heavy. This is a new thing. It's 2 pieces. I don't know if you guys can see this thing, but this is a Pete Wellborn special. And I'm going to put it back down. But this is something new for our legends. You should appreciate it. This is the first time we're going to have this as the award. And again, just Wade, Susan, Pete, can't thank you enough for all you're doing for our IP community and especially for the IP Legends. So give them one more round of applause, please. All right. So just a few more comments. Want to congratulate, again, Jim and Robert and Virginia. Just congratulations on being role models for this community. You're all bringing different things to this community in terms of intellectual property. We all know how fundamental it is to our existence and how important it is to our lives, and to be able to bring such contributions to our community and to also do it in such a way that people want to follow in your footsteps. Again, it's a big deal in this community to be an IP legend, and just congratulations for your contributions and your tenure and everything you've done to affect people's lives. So we look forward to celebrating you here in a moment. Also want to thank my GIPA people. We got a lot of people working on GIPA, and I want to say a special thanks to my vice chairs who work just so hard to really bring our dreams and make them a reality. I want to thank Elizabeth Lester, who's vice chair of our Awareness and Education Committee, or pillar. I want to thank Wade Walker, who's the vice chair of our IP Collaborative Ecosystem pillar, and Karen Borelli, who's the vice chair of our Diversity and Inclusion pillar. They do a phenomenal job. I also want to thank Corrine Sukinik, who's our executive director. She works tirelessly to keep us all on track. I wish I could name all the other board members and committee members. We have hundreds of people working on this at this point, and we are really, truly making an impact on intellectual property and more importantly on people's lives in the Georgia community. So just thank you everybody who continues to work tirelessly to make Georgia the #1 state in the world for intellectual property. And as I say that, I want to make sure everybody appreciates what's happened here in just a few short years. A reminder, GIPA just got launched in 2018. We did inherit a bunch of programs from Georgia State and Georgia Tech that had been going on for about 15 years, including the Legends. But I want you to appreciate the significance of what's going on in Georgia, and just really be proud of yourselves, because there's so many of you that are making contributions. You know, there are states now across the country that are emulating us, and they say imitation's the sincerest form of flattery. There's now an IP alliance in Illinois and New York and Kentucky and North Carolina, about another dozen being formed throughout the country. I truly believe there'll be one in every state, all 50 states here, before it's all said and done. They all want to be like you, and that's something that you should really embrace. And it also gives us a little something because they want to catch up to us, and we got to continue to show them the way. The other thing I want to share with you is this: because of all these other states that want to be like us, we have now formed the United States Intellectual Property Alliance. That got formed at the end of last year. There's now 1 full year. That's the umbrella organization for all these states. It's also got the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on our board, the Copyright Office, and almost every other national IP organization is on our board. So we are doing tremendous things now nationwide, and I'm proud because Georgia is sharing everything we've done for free. That's kind of anti-intellectual property, right? Everybody likes to hoard. We are doing it for free because we want to help everybody in this country, every single citizen. And the last point I want to make is simply this. When we filed the trademark for Georgia Intellectual Property Alliance, we filed for the U.S. IP Alliance. We were always thinking more than just Georgia, but we also filed for the Global IP Alliance. We were thinking one day, way out, we might try to help the world. Well, it's happening a lot faster than we would have thought. Again, Georgia launched in 2018. U.S. launched in 2020. I want to tell you that WIPO has gotten wind of us, and we have had multiple meetings with them. They have now joined the board of the U.S. IPA with the express purpose of launching the Global IP Alliance, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, next fall. So congratulations to all of you, because you have all been a part of this, and we really appreciate you. Have a great event.
Scott, thanks so much for those inspiring words. We all greatly appreciate the acknowledgement. And I want to thank everyone as well for all of your valuable contributions. As Scott mentioned, this very fine award that we have here, sponsored by Wellborn and Wallace, is truly a great gift now that we are offering thanks to Pete and Susan Wellborn. Scott said a lot of great remarks about them. I want to echo those exact same sentiments and welcome Pete Wellborn, who's the founding and managing partner of Wellborn and Wallace, up to tell us more about the award. You know, what a great guy. I mean, even today, he's reaching out to try to help the youth basketball community, all the players on my kids' team with some great encouragement and inspiration. I mean, there's no limits or bounds to Pete's kindness and his giving back to the community. You'd be hard-pressed finding someone to be more generous. So, Pete, please welcome.
And I could tell you all how I feel about Wade and Scott and everybody else that's here today, but that'd be 3 or 4 hours, and so that'll have to be for a different time. So I'm going to talk about Sybaris. Sybaris was a greater Grecian city-state in southern Italy. If you think of Italy as a boot, it was on the sole of the boot right in front of the hill. And Sybaris was a great place to live. They were known as the hedonists of the Mediterranean. One of the writers of the time said they were slaves to their bellies and lovers of luxury. They liked wine, women, song, everything else. So when they hit their peak, which was between 600 and 500 BC, was a pretty great place to live. You might be wondering, other than the fact that I will stand up in front of anybody and talk about anything for as long as somebody listens, besides that, why am I talking about Sybaris? Well, it's because Sybaris had the first recorded instance of intellectual property. And consistent with that hedonistic lifestyle and the loving of luxury, it was a patent-like law 500 or 600 years BC that for bakers and chefs protected culinary creations that were deemed to rise to the level of a, quote, new refinement in luxury. So the symbol of Sybaris was the bull. Some people say it's because it was a metaphor for the two rivers that Sybaris was built on, but their coins, their art, everything had the bull. And so we thought that it would be great to use this legend of intellectual property to honor our IP legends. So to the recipients today, I say congratulations. If you need a history refresher, there's also a plaque on the back called IP and the Bull that explains all about Sybaris and why the bull sits atop this great award for such deserving people. So again, I'll say congratulations to the recipients, and I'll also say if you haven't been to the firm before, if you are a sports fan at all, I invite you to please stay after the ceremony and take a tour of all the Bill Curry and Georgia Tech and Green Bay Packer memorabilia, old NFL stuff. If you're a football fan or a sports fan at all, you'll get goosebumps. But thank you all so much for coming, and we're going to have a great day.
Steve, thank you. Thank you again for opening up the firm. It's sincerely appreciated. So now let's turn to our presentation of awards. We got a lot to cover today, and we are excited to do so. Here to introduce Virginia Taylor is a very accomplished and talented individual herself. Ty Lord, partner at Kilpatrick, Townsend, and Stockton.
Good afternoon. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Virginia Taylor, one of the 2021 IP Legal Award recipients. In preparing this introduction, I asked a couple of my colleagues to give me some words to describe Virginia. Excuse me. The responses I got back were things like brilliant, talented, funny, well-connected, generous, a force, and my personal favorite, a badass. And that she is, having started her practice during a time when women were still unicorns in large law firms. Virginia not only made a way for herself, but she paved the way for others like me. During her 40-plus years of career, Virginia has amassed a number of accolades and accomplishments, many of which I am sure contributed to her being named one of the 2021 IP Legend Award recipients today. But to be clear, Virginia, I have always known that I was in the presence of a legend. Let's see what others have to say about Virginia, and after which you will hear from Virginia to accept the award. I did it. And you don't have to take everything I did and do it exactly that way, but I can at least give you some sage advice about how I did those things.
She's didn't take credit for a lot of things that were hers and was very reluctant to get credit for it because she's almost the quintessential shiro. She gives of herself and she cares, and the client can tell she cares.
Well, I wouldn't be where I am today but for the fact that I was trained by Virginia. Certainly the first 5 or 6 years of my time with the firm, I probably worked with Virginia more than any other partner in the firm. They don't teach you in law school how to practice law or practice intellectual property law, and I learned how to practice from her. I learned how to become a professional and a well-rounded professional in the field. Greatly appreciative of everything I've had an opportunity to learn from her.
I think she is a pioneer in many ways, and I think the fact that she came along at a time when there were not many women in this field, not that many women partners in big law practice in Atlanta in general, that she came along at a time where there must have been tremendous obstacles to achieving the position that she ultimately achieved.
Seeing a woman do what she's done from the time that she's done it. So now when you go to our International Trademark Association, for example, is one of the largest trademark associations in the world. Everybody there knows who Virginia Taylor is. I mean, she has really carved out a reputation for herself. And that is helpful for people like me who've come behind her and who are her mentor, are her mentees, because we can borrow some of her goodwill. So she's bringing us along not only by teaching us the law, but she's also bringing us along by introducing us and allowing us to leverage her network to further our careers as well.
Her international presence gave our firm and gave Atlanta a leg up over other firms in other southern cities. Virginia's network of people in dozens of countries around the world on a first-name basis who obviously loved her. When people, young lawyers, went to INTA or Marks, the European and the International Trademark Associations, and they said they were from Atlanta, you had a very high chance of the person saying, "Do you know Virginia Taylor?"
Virginia, not only was Virginia and is Virginia a person who is deeply interested in trademark law, but Virginia has a natural curiosity for a wide range of things. Her passion for trademarks, I think, really stemmed from the fact that she was a curious and is a curious person in general, and has a passion for a lot of different things. And I think to be a good attorney, I think you have to be interested. You have to be interested in people, you have to be interested in topics, you have to have that enthusiasm, and Virginia always has it.
Well, Virginia is a Renaissance person, but her mentoring, her expertise, her networking, and her intellect and her dedication to clients are her real strengths.
Virginia I don't think I've ever seen her doubt herself or be afraid in any kind of situation. And I think having someone be that bold in their presence or be that sure about what it is that they're doing and be unafraid to express their opinions is something that is great, because you can emulate that.
Virginia has had a great career individually, but I think perhaps equal or greater importance are people like me and others that she has helped advance our individual careers and to bring us along, and at the same time bring the firm along. I mean, she really is responsible for bringing forward a generation of younger lawyers into the practice and allowed us to spread our wings and achieve as well, and really attempt to formulate our practices in her image.
I just love her so much.
Please welcome Virginia Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My colleagues are entirely too generous, but I am deeply grateful to the Georgia Intellectual Property Alliance for this great honor. I feel especially privileged to be recognized along with my fellow trademark lawyer and dear friend Jim Johnson and Robert Spano, who has made such an extraordinary contribution to the musical and cultural life of Atlanta during the last 20 years. This event also serves as a celebration of Georgia Intellectual Property Alliance itself and the important role that it now plays as an umbrella organization, fostering, coordinating, and promoting a collaboration among the many academic, business, and professional IP resources that exist in Atlanta and Georgia. I am also thankful for the influence and generosity of a number of mentors who have provided instructions, advice, and guidance, and constructive criticism over many years. Foremost among them is Miles Alexander, who has led our firm's trademark practice throughout my legal career. Miles is a truly legendary lawyer and is a former recipient of this award along with our partners Jerry Swan and Joe Beck. Jerry and Joe taught me all I have ever learned about copyright law. But it is not only colleagues in our own firms who may help to advance our careers in IP. I will tell just one very short story. When I was maybe a fourth-year associate, I received a phone call from Tony Askew, who was chairman of the newly renamed Patent, Trademark, and Copyright section of the State Bar, formerly known as the Patent Law section. I knew Tony only by reputation as a prominent named partner in Jones and Askew, one of the two leading boutique firms in Atlanta, the other being Newton Hopkins and Ormsby. Tony said that the section executive committee believed that it was time to include some women in the section leadership, as well as more trademark and copyright lawyers, and asked if I would be willing to be nominated for secretary of the section. He explained that the secretary would almost automatically be elevated to vice chair and then chair in succeeding years. I was surprised but very pleased that Tony even knew my name. As this experience illustrates, the wonderful thing about the Georgia IP Bar is the tradition of collegiality and generosity in supporting the careers of young practitioners. I was mentored and encouraged not only by Miles Alexander and other partners in our firm, but even by sometimes adversaries in litigation, like Bill Needle and Stan Birch, and many other valued colleagues in the IP Bar. So I want to express my sincere appreciation to all of you and the many professional colleagues who have fostered and supported my career for over 4 decades of happy IP practice. Thank you very much.
Virginia, thank you again. Very well said and very well deserved. Your acknowledgement of our IP legends and those in the community who've contributed to you, and I know you've contributed to very many others, and we really appreciate you for that. Thank you. And now here to present Jim Johnson, to introduce him rather, is a person who is no stranger to giving back to the community herself, a GIPA 2010 IP Community Service Award winner and partner at Eversheds Sutherland and Ford.
Thanks so much, Wade, and thank you to GIPA for continuing this wonderful tradition for our community, and to Welburn and Wallace for hosting, and for everyone whose hard work has gone into putting together this fantastic event today. And congratulations to Ms. Taylor, Mr. Spano, On your recognition today, it's truly an honor for me to be among you on this important occasion. As Wade said, I'm here to introduce my colleague and friend, James H. Johnson, Jr. Jim, to those of us who've had the pleasure to know him. But I chose to use his full name at this stage to just recognize his father, who clearly had a hand in shaping the fine man that Jim has become. Raised in Virginia's Tidewater, Jim enrolled at Princeton University, something he's clearly proud of, as you'll see today. He enrolled at Princeton at a time when, suffice it to say, there were some people on campus who might have been a little surprised to encounter this particular son of public school teachers in their dorm or in their lecture hall. Jim being Jim, of course, he excelled at Princeton. And when it was time to take the next step, Jim returned home to attend the School of Law at the University of Virginia. And there he again excelled academically, but perhaps more importantly for Jim, in Charlottesville, he met the co-ed who became his wife, Lisa, who's here to share in Jim's honor today. As Jim's life progressed, professionally and personally, he left his mark on so many institutions, which you will learn more about in the video that will follow. But I want to share with you the essence of his Jimness, his genuine interest in and concern for other people as individuals. First and foremost, his family. Not only has Jim nurtured his long marriage to Lisa, he also regularly visits his mother and extended family in the Washington, D.C. area and looks forward to seeing his grown engineer daughter, Laura, as often as possible. Jim also combines his love of travel with his dedication to extended family and longtime friends, making sure he's present for important moments and to just share adventures that build these bonds. As Jim's colleague and friend for 18 years, I have seen him lavish that same attention on the countless individuals who call him their mentor, including me. We forged our friendship when I sought his counsel on legal and personal matters, including the challenges of raising daughters in 21st century America. Jim will advise anyone who asks, taking care to learn and remember each person's story and offering encouragement tailor-made for their individual needs. If you are ever lucky enough to attend a large conference with Jim, be sure to build in extra time to move between events. He will be flagged down with greetings from his many friends from every continent. I was going to say except Antarctica, but he probably knows someone who's served there too. So, Jim, thank you. Thank you for sharing so much of yourself with so many of us. Your lifetime achievement, the thing that makes you a legend, is the community that you have built. And it's our honor to call you our friend. Thank you. And now,
He is extremely skilled as a lawyer, right? He has just a lot of the natural analytical ability. He's got extensive experience that through the years helping protect some of the world's best known brands. But he brings something extra into that. He's able to take what he's learned and turn it into wisdom, right? So counseling at a bit of a higher level.
Jim has been quite successful in working with the big deal paying clients, but from my mind and observing him, I think he's even more enthusiastic and gets more out of working with these nonprofits. And in doing that, he is using his particular terrific skills as an IP lawyer.
But one thing you'll notice about Jim pretty quickly and consistently is his personality. He's a very engaging person, very warm, caring personality. And that's what kind of takes him above and beyond.
Just that Jim has a really good way with clients in explaining things that are complicated with respect to intellectual property issues, but he is very good about breaking them down in a way that our clients can understand.
He served as in leadership roles in the Atlanta IP and Court, the Georgia Bar IP section, and within INTA as well.
Jim has had a fascination with it, I think, his whole career. He worked, as you know, at Koch and Kellogg, and with our firm, he's had a number of Fortune 500 clients, and I knew him first. I was in commercial litigation and occasionally had IP questions and knew him as a very talented IP lawyer.
Especially with trademarks, there's a degree of judgment based on experience, right, that you have to apply, because you can only do so much, with looking at the facts and the law. At some point, you have to decide which is the best course for the client. And it's just, he's got I think, an extra bit of wisdom and judgment that he brings into play to get it right. That's the key, the judgment and wisdom.
Yeah, the work that Jim does is very important because our nonprofit clients understand how important their reputation is. They're organizations that only survive because of volunteers and donors. And if their reputation is damaged in any way, if their name is sullied in any way, that can really impact the ability of their organization to survive. So they understand that well, and they're very grateful to get somebody who can help them.
Jim's work in trademarks has meant a lot to Atlanta, and it starts with the business community, because there's an awful lot of trademark asset value in the business community, including local businesses that you may not think of as local, but they are headquartered here locally, even though they may be global businesses with global brands. But he also, finds the time, to help small businesses or even not-for-profit businesses, with their intellectual property needs, including trademarks. And then he just helps make a lot of young lawyers good lawyers one day.
Like I said, he's always been willing to pave the way, impart his wisdom and experience on others, and help them have an easier path if they can. He's very well recognized in the areas of trademarks, not only within Atlanta, but on a national level as well.
Jim's perseverance and his demeanor through thick and thin, through a lot of years and different times. Jim is steady as they come.
Jim really goes above and beyond, and as the pro bono partner, it's good for me to know when we have a question come in for a nonprofit that's a client of the firm or a referral, and they have an intellectual property question, I know exactly who I can call, and he will always say yes.
He's always got a smile on his face, always very pleasant, always very calm. I don't think I've ever heard him raise his voice.
What our clients tell us is by turning over the concerns about legal issues to somebody like Jim, who really understands it and can handle it, it just gives them peace of mind and the ability to focus on what they need to be focusing on.
Well, for me, it's just been a pleasure, one, to work with Jim. He just has that kind of personality. Two, I've learned a lot that's made me a better lawyer because he's a very good one. And being associated with Jim hasn't hurt my reputation any.
We are there to help nonprofits survive, and we can only do that with the support of volunteer attorneys like Jim. So I wish I could have a lot more Jims.
Anytime you tell him thank you for what you did for this nonprofit, thank you for what you did for the community, he says, it's my pleasure, and he means it.
Jim Johnson, Jr.
Well, I hardly recognize myself when people are talking about me. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your support. My colleagues, Pete Pappas, Ann Ford, Scott Frank, Wade Walker, Elizabeth Lester, all of the people throughout the years who have been there for me. I have been so blessed to have you in my professional career. Thanks to my wife, the mother of our child, my mother, my daughter, my dad, my grandparents, and friends for all how they have nurtured me over the years. I want to say congrats to Robert Spano for, you've literally brought music to the Atlanta community, and we owe a debt of gratitude that probably can never be paid. You don't realize how great you are, but let me tell you, you are, and you deserve this honor today. Virginia Taylor, she and I used to joke when we were going to INTA meetings because we always seem to end up on the same flight somehow, some way. And Virginia and I don't know if you remember this, Virginia, we had a case against each other where one of your clients was infringing my client's Santa Claus trademark. So I had to explain to you. I said, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus trademark. We were able to resolve that, as you can imagine, because reasonable lawyers can resolve things reasonably. Let me give you some thoughts about things and put things in perspective, how I'm looking at the world. In 1619, the first African Americans arrived in Jamestown. They were slaves. Their lives were hard and brutal. If you ever pick cotton, it's a very difficult thing. The cotton ball, I've never picked it, so I hear that the balls cut your hands, and then you bleed, and then the sweat comes into your blood, and it's very painful. These people had a brutal existence. These were my ancestors, because I grew up in Virginia, the Tidewater area, so it's likely that I'm a descendant of those people. But I thank them because their suffering and their commitment and their faith paved the way for people like myself to benefit from that. And I owe them a debt of gratitude. My father was the first in his family to go to college, and he went to college during the Depression when people were saying, we're trying to survive here, and you want to go to college? You want to do what? It took him 6 years to get through school, begging for food and people helping him out. But he went on to graduate and become a professor of mathematics. And he vowed that his children would never have that same difficulty of going through school that he did. My mother was the first in her family to go past the 8th grade, but she did it in spectacular fashion. Not only did she graduate from high school, she graduated #1 in her class. Not only did she graduate #1 in her class, she did it when she was 15 years old. So this is a remarkable woman. She went on to get a doctorate in mathematics and became a teacher and a professor. So Mom, I owe you an incredible debt of gratitude. I've never properly thanked you, but I've tried to do that for you. Let me also tell you about another story about my father. I wrote him a letter when I was in law school because I finally reached a point where I wasn't taking relatives for granted. So I wrote him a letter and I said, "Dear Dad, I want you to know that I appreciate everything that you've done for me and that I know that I can't repay you. The only way I can do that is to do the same that you've done for me, for my children." I wasn't sure that he got that letter because he never acknowledged it. He never said anything. But my uncle, his brother, told me, he said, "That was some letter you wrote your father. I have never, ever in my life seen him cry. He didn't cry at our father's funeral, but he was crying because of that letter." So that made me feel good, and I thank him for that. My dad was a kind of a guy that was connected. If you told him about a problem, he knew who to call and how to fix it. And I mentioned to him that I wanted to be a trademark lawyer. And I was having difficulty with law firms because at that time, they didn't hire people who didn't have a technical degree. They only hired people who knew trademarks. And then they said, then the fact of the matter was I didn't know trademark law either. A little problem there. So the next thing I knew, I'm having an interview with the commissioner of the Patent and Trademark Office because my father placed a few calls and one of his friends was a friend of the commissioner, and the commissioner was a naval officer, which in 1979 was a good thing to be considering his friend Jimmy Carter was the president of the United States at the time. He had a picture of Jimmy Carter behind his desk just so that anybody who came to the office knew who his patron was. And I met with him and he said, "Yes, you have good credentials. I think we're good to go. Meet with Mr. Bettendorf, who's the director of the trademark examining operation." So but when I met with the director, Mr. Bettendorf, he said, "Jim, you have great credentials and everything. We would love to hire you, but due to budget cuts, we can't hire you. And so don't even bother to apply, but I'll keep your resume on hold for next year." So I was a little disappointed, but I wrote Mr. Parker back and said, "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. Unfortunately, when I met with Mr. Bettendorf, he explained to me that he could not hire me this year because of budget cuts." So I got a call from Mr. Parker, the commissioner of the Patent and Trademark Office. He said, "Jim, I got your letter and I don't understand it." He said, "I don't know why Mr. Bettendorf told you that, because we're hiring 30 new attorneys, and you're going to be one of them. So I'm going to have a chat with Mr. Bettendorf about how he didn't understand that, because he was part of the budget approval process." But so my dad helped me get my first job, and it was the way he did it. My grandmother, my mother's mother, cleaned the buses at Greyhound, so she didn't know anything about college. My grandfather drove trucks for the Navy. But when I grew up, my mother, being a math person, both my parents were mathematicians, I didn't appreciate what a benefit that was. My mom used to teach us, my sister and me, how to say various things in German. So we used to say the Lord's Prayer in German every night. And I thought that everybody said prayers at night in a foreign language. And so when I asked one of my friends, Leroy Hassell, who went on to become the first Black Chief Justice of Virginia Supreme Court, said, "What language do you say your prayers in?" He said, "American." My wife, my amazing wife, she was the first in her family to go to college. See, there's a theme here. In one generation, you had a huge leap. She was the first to go to college. When her guidance counselor took her and several other classmates, the most promising students, to visit the University of Virginia and to tour there, she noticed that when they went into one of the restaurants, her guidance counselor had an animated discussion with the manager. And they left the restaurant and went somewhere else. She later learned, and this was with a nationally prominent chain of restaurants, that they did not want to serve the two black girls in the group. They said, we can admit the others, but not those two. And so, but she, anyway, thank God she went to University of Virginia, because that's where I met her. And because I met her, we have a daughter, Lauren Johnson, who went to Woodward Academy for 12 years and then at Georgia Tech. And she's an engineer, and I'm so proud of her, or I could burst. So I think about a little movie that features a very young, idealistic man who suffers some heartache and disappointment. And he starts to question his own value and his values. And he starts to make a fatal mistake. And then an angel appears and shows him that he was focused on the wrong things, that the true wealth wasn't how much money you have in the bank, but how much love you have in your family, how much respect you have in the community, what you've done to improve society. And that they made him see that he did have a wonderful life. And that was fellow Princetonian Jimmy Stewart's starred in that movie. And I have to say that I've had a wonderful life. I don't know what I've done to deserve all of this, but I feel blessed to have all of you as friends and to have worked with so many wonderful people. And I'm a better person for it. And I just don't know why you've all put up with me all of these years, but you have, and I thank you for that. So in closing, I just have this one closing thought. When you come across obstacles and things in your path, you don't give up. You keep on. You keep the faith. I think of the civil rights anthem. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday, and I believe we will overcome someday. Thank you very much.
Jim, powerful. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for all that you do. And you're making a habit out of these award recognitions, by the way, and for very good reason. So for our final segment of our presentation of awards, we're fortunate to have Jennifer Barlament with us today. She's got experience leading orchestras around the world. She's currently the executive director of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. Here to introduce Robert Spano.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring to be here in the presence of legends, and it's my great pleasure to be here with my friend and colleague, Robert Spano, who for 20 years has been at the head of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra in a truly extraordinary tenure. During those 2 decades, he's made an indelible mark on the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and on the Atlanta community. And I'd like to share some of the Robert fingerprints with you, especially benchmarks that relate specifically to how he's inspired new works in the area of classical music. Under Robert's leadership, the ASO has developed an international reputation for bringing significant new orchestral works to the world. A composer himself, Robert has championed and shaped the careers of many of America's most celebrated composers, including Osvaldo Golijov, Michael Gandolfi, Jennifer Higdon, and Christopher Theofanidis. During Robert's tenure, the orchestra has performed at least 55 world premieres. We've commissioned or co-commissioned 45 new works, and in addition, we've offered 34 Atlanta and U.S. premieres, an extraordinary track record. Robert's 2-decade partnership with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra has yielded many significant milestones and accomplishments outside of Atlanta as well, including a long and fruitful relationship with Carnegie Hall, with 9 performances at the famed venue, as well as tours to other venues and music festivals across the country. And last but certainly not least, under Robert's leadership, the ASO has received 6 Grammy Awards, a significant legacy and contribution to the ASO's total of 27 Grammys. These are only a few of the many, many examples of Robert's extensive impact on the ASO and the entire orchestra field. In the following video, our board chair Janine Brown and ASO bassist and composer Michael Kurth and radio host Lois Reitzis will share more about Robert as a 2021 recipient of the IP Legends Award. Congratulations, Robert, on this well-deserved award.
He's a brilliant musician. That has been established. He is also this warm, sweet, self-effacing, witty man.
You know, he's a real dynamic guy. Very always on the go. Always his mind is just constantly flittering around to different topics and avenues and angles and stuff. He's really just got alacrity, I think is a word I learned in high school that maybe describes him pretty well.
Such a wonderful sense of humor. And self-effacing and symphony conductor don't often go in the same sentence. I once told Robert that, and he said, "Do I need to work on my diva?" And I said, "Don't change a thing," because it is so refreshing. And I think that's why the musicians adore him the way they do, and certainly what endears him to me.
Sometime treat yourself. Watch a video of him conducting the Star Spangled Banner, because nobody does it like him. We've played the piece 100,000 times. It's the same arrangement all the time. The passion he puts into something as simple as that is just emblematic of how much authenticity and how much realness he brings to every performance. He doesn't phone it in.
The recordings that Robert has done over his tenure have included many new works. And of the, 20 some odd recordings that Robert has done, we have 6 Grammys as a result. And so it's just a significant contribution that Robert has made to the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and the city of Atlanta.
I remember when he came here, I kind of thought it was going to be a new era for the ASO in terms of contemporary music. Because at the Brooklyn Philharmonic, that was really what distinguished him. And indeed, he established the Atlanta School of Composers with all of this marvelous contemporary music and new works that he and the orchestra commissioned.
The Atlanta Symphony Orchestra has performed 30 new compositions as a result of Robert's influence. They've performed over 50 world premieres. And when you think specifically about the Atlanta School of Composers, these are composers perhaps new in their careers, and through his mentoring, he's been able to provide opportunities to so many.
He made contemporary music appealing here.
One of the things that's essential to his brand is modern American music. There's no one I'd rather play the complicated stuff with, the mixed meter stuff, the stuff that's really requires so much precision. And he can do the broad gestures and the sweeping emotive things, but he can also do the clicky things that just really make precision music like Copland or stuff like that really, really work.
If you look at the last 15 years, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra has performed at Carnegie Hall 9 times. And that really speaks to Robert's leadership. It speaks to how amazing the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra is. And I will tell you, it's just an incredible pleasure and joy to be at Carnegie Hall when the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra is performing, and appreciate how widely recognized the orchestra is throughout the orchestral community.
He's not demanding in ways that make you feel put upon or overworked. He's demanding in a way that makes you feel inspired, makes you feel empowered to do things.
And how can one not help but want to do their best for someone who inspires that way.
Over 40% of the musicians of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra came to Atlanta during his tenure. So he's hired them, he's mentored them, and they're incredibly strong relationships that he's built. Robert's
brand is trust in the artists, in the composers, in the performers. And if you think about it, it sort of has to be. I mean, he's there not making any noise at all, just waving a stick around in the air, but coaxing the most beautiful and powerful sounds out of a group of very diverse musicians. It's a unique assemblage of gifts that he has. The gift of inspiring folks and encouraging folks, empowering folks to have the ability to do all those things. How could he not be, a great conductor, honestly?
Robert is a champion of our musicians. Back in 2012 and in 2014, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra was working through some pretty significant financial issues. We were working through work stoppages, and Robert demonstrated extraordinary leadership then. He ultimately came to co-chair the Musicians Endowment Campaign, and Maestro Spano took on the responsibility of raising $25 million over 4 years for the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. But his success was raising $27 million in 2 years. And we're incredibly thankful to Robert for that extraordinary work. As a result of his leadership, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra has had budget surpluses for 7 years now. And yeah, we're very excited about that. So appreciative of his leadership.
I adore being with him. And I hope we can continue to laugh together for a long time.
Please welcome Maestro Robert Spano.
You're right. It's hard to hear all those things about yourself. You wonder who you are. I feel particularly honored, I think, because this is not a musical institution that's recognizing my work, and instead it's speaking to exactly what I had hoped for and wanted when I came to Atlanta, which is that the Atlanta Symphony be a vital and important part of the larger community, that we're connected, that we're part of the civic and cultural life of our city and our world. And you're making me feel like maybe we did that. And I could have wanted nothing more than that. I remember I had a TED Talk I did a few years ago, and the subject of the TED Talk for everybody, there were 6 of us, I think, was community. And I realized that that's how I think of music, is community. As Michael Kurth rightly pointed out, I don't even make any sound. So everything's always about what we're doing together. And Janine so graciously said we've had budget surpluses for 7 years, but that's Jennifer Barlaman's work. And orchestras are all about the synergy of the staff and the board and the audiences and the players and the chorus and the volunteers and the kids. And it's always about that intersection of all these communities. And that's what I've always been inspired by with what orchestras can be and should be, I believe, in the world. All of my life, I've been hearing about questioning, are orchestras important? Are they relevant? Do we need them? They're big, expensive pieces of machinery, and they're playing all that music of dead people. And then I realized when I was doing that TED Talk, well, those dead people are part of our community too. And there is something beautiful about honoring ancestors and carrying forward the traditions that have been handed down to us and the legacy of our own families and of those who worked in the field before us. So that's another beautiful community. I've had pretty good indicators along the way if we're connecting. For me, what what we were able to do in response to 9/11, even though it was in New York, there was a lot of grieving and processing to be done here, and what the orchestra was able to provide was pretty special. When we were able to play Mrs. King's homegoing service, that was incredibly powerful. When we toured Georgia and played not only in high school auditoriums, but agricultural centers, now I knew we were getting somewhere. And then I was at the Walmart in Ellijay, where I have a house, and the clerk recognized me, and he wasn't so excited to see me, except that he knew who I was and that he was coming soon to hear new music of John Adams. So there was a John Adams fan at the Ellijay Walmart, and I thought, now we're talking. This is connectivity. This is meaningful work. And as I reflect on 20 years of being here, I feel so lucky that I got what I wanted. I got the great gift of being able to work with brilliant colleagues in many fields and with terrific dedication and support of our donors, our board, that part of our family, the connection to young people through our various programs educationally. And this world of living composers has been a very special part of what we've been able to do that makes me feel particularly good about our role in the larger world of music outside of Atlanta. Jennifer Higdon was one of our first composers that we commissioned. She was the first we commissioned after I came, and she's now the most played living composer in the world. Her music is the most played, and that's just inspiring to me that we were able to live all of this. And I'm so excited for the future. I was tremendously excited with the appointment of my successor a week ago. Natalie Stutzman is this brilliant musician who I think is going to bring a whole other fresh and exciting energy to the ASO. And that's a gratifying feeling. That I was able to stay as long as I was what I wanted. That I'm able to leave it to someone else is also what I wanted, to be part of that stream. And I feel somehow recognized by what you're offering me today, and I feel very overwhelmed by that. I'm very grateful because I feel like it's a recognition that the orchestra is an important part of the life in Atlanta. And very grateful to be here with you and to be honored with the two colleagues here. And thank you. It's very special. Thank you.
Robert, thank you. And I think your point, your message, community, connectivity is right on. And I think that is a fabulous ending point for this great event that we had today. The foundation of GIPA's pillars of IP awareness and education, a collaborative ecosystem, diversity and inclusion is built on people, relationships, and trust. And what we've seen today is that in action. We've got great leaders in this community. We've got so many sponsors, so many contributors who've come together to make this a special event. Community, connectivity. I'm very proud of the way we've come together. And I think this is a model ecosystem of how things work, especially in Georgia. And as Scott pointed out, everyone else is watching. We're a great model to follow, thanks in large part to our winners today, Robert Spano, Jim Johnson, Virginia Taylor, and for all of you who came to support them. So thank you so much for everything that you do and for celebrating with our fine IP legends today. Thank you.